I'm Clara, 32, and I was staring at my phone screen like it might suddenly change the words I just read. If you want to be part of it, you can watch through Google Earth, LOL. My sister's email response to asking about my invitation to her Paris wedding, the same wedding I'd just contributed $25,000 toward. I set my coffee down carefully on my kitchen counter, noting how steady my hands were. Funny thing about humiliation, sometimes it hits you so cleanly that you actually feel calm. Like when you're in a car accident and everything goes into slow motion. My fingers typed back without hesitation. I understand. Enjoy your grand day. But here's what I didn't tell her in that moment. I'd already requested the entire week off work specifically to attend her ceremony. 7 paid vacation days that I'd been saving up. All so I could be there for the sister who apparently thought I belonged nowhere near her special day. That decision would turn out to be the best mistake I'd ever make. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt completely invisible to your own family. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Looking back, I should have seen the pattern years earlier. But when you're the older sister who's always been the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who shows up with solutions and checkbooks, you don't realize you're actually just the family ATM with legs. My apartment suddenly felt too quiet. Through my living room window, I could see couples walking hand in hand down the street, probably discussing weekend plans that didn't involve emotional demolition by family members. I opened my laptop and found myself Googling luxury Hawaiian resorts. Just browsing, I told myself, just seeing what was out there. But something about the turquoise waters and pristine beaches on my screen felt like possibility, like maybe that week off work didn't have to be wasted after all. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Sarah. How did Sophie take the news about you coming to Paris? I stared at her message for a long moment before typing back, change of plans. Looks like I'm going to need a travel buddy for somewhere tropical instead. 3 dots appeared immediately as she typed back, finally. I've been waiting 20 years for you to choose yourself over that girl. Apparently everyone could see what I'd been blind to. Everyone except me. But that was about to change. And my sister Sophie was about to learn exactly what happens when you take the family bank for granted. Because sometimes the best response to being excluded isn't fighting for inclusion. It's showing them exactly what they've lost. 3 months earlier, I'd been sitting in my favorite coffee shop when my phone rang. Sophie's name flashed on the screen, and like always, I answered immediately. Clara? Her voice had that breathless, excited quality that meant she either had amazing news or needed something expensive. I have the most incredible news. I set down my latte, already reaching for my mental calculator. Tell me everything. Marcus proposed, she squealed. We're getting married in Paris, Clara. An actual chateau wedding. Can you believe it? I could believe it, actually. Sophie had been planning her dream wedding since she was 7, complete with detailed Pinterest boards and a price tag that would make most people dizzy. What I couldn't believe was that I felt my first instinct was to ask how much it would cost me, because that's how our relationship worked. Sophie dreamed, I funded. Sophie wanted, I provided. Sophie succeeded, I cheered from the sidelines while quietly handling the logistics. That's wonderful, Soph. Tell me about the venue. For the next hour, she detailed every aspect of her perfect day. The 17th century chateau, the vintage champagne, the custom Vera Wang dress, the flowers imported from Amsterdam, each detail more elaborate than the last. The only problem, she said, her voice dropping to that particular tone I knew meant incoming request, is that Marcus's family can only cover half the costs. His dad's business hit some rough patches. And there it was. How much are we talking about? I asked, though part of me already knew. Around $50,000 total. So if Marcus's family covers half, that's $25,000, Sophie. I know it's a lot, she rushed on, but you're doing so well with your consulting business and you don't have kids or a mortgage or anything expensive. The casual dismissal of my life stung. Just because I chose a different path didn't mean my money grew on trees. But Sophie had never learned to see beyond her own needs. You don't have to answer now, she continued. Just think about it, please. You're the only person I can ask. The manipulation was subtle but effective. Make it seem like a choice while also making it clear I was her only option. Classic Sophie. I found myself saying yes before I'd even thought it through properly. Because that's what big sisters do, right? We make the impossible possible for our little sisters, even when they're 28 years old and perfectly capable of planning a wedding within their means. Oh my God, Clara, you're the best sister ever. I'm going to make this up to you somehow. But as I hung up the phone, I realized Sophie never asked how I was doing. Never inquired about my business or my life or my own dreams that might require saving money. I was just the reliable source of emergency funds, activated whenever her ambitions exceeded her resources. Still, I transferred the money the next day. Because family is family, right? and surely she'd want me there to see how my contribution helped create her perfect day. Turns out I was half right about that. The bank transfer went through on a Tuesday. $25,000 moved from my business savings account to Sophie's checking account with a memo line that read, "For your perfect day." I kept a screenshot of the transaction, not for any particular reason at the time. Just seemed like the kind of thing you should document when you're making what amounted to a down payment on someone else's fairy tale. The money represented 2 years of careful saving, 2 years of taking on extra projects, saying no to expensive dinners out, driving my reliable but aging Honda instead of upgrading to something newer, 2 years of building a financial cushion that could weather business fluctuations or fund my own dreams. Gone in 30 seconds with a few clicks on my banking app. Sophie called that evening, voice bright with excitement. "Clara, you have no idea what this means to me. Marcus and I just met with the wedding planner, and with your contribution, we can upgrade everything. Better flowers, premium champagne, even live classical music during the ceremony." "That sounds beautiful," I said, genuinely happy to hear her joy. The chateau coordinator said it'll be one of their most elegant events ever. Very exclusive guest list, obviously. The venue only accommodates intimate groups. Something in her tone caught my attention. "How intimate are we talking?" "Around 40 people. Close family and friends only." 40 people. That seemed reasonable for a destination wedding. Expensive to host, but manageable for the guests who could afford the trip to France. "Have you started working on the guest list?" I asked. "Oh yes, Marcus and I spent hours on it last night. It's so hard to keep the numbers down when you want to include everyone special." Everyone special. The phrase echoed in my head as we talked about other wedding details. Flowers, music, the rehearsal dinner location. Sophie was animated, describing every element with the passion of someone whose dreams were becoming reality, thanks to someone else's bank account. After we hung up, I found myself browsing travel websites, looking at flights to Paris for her wedding date. September 15th. The tickets weren't cheap, around $1,200, but I started mentally budgeting for the trip anyway, because of course I'd be going. I'd just funded a quarter of the wedding. I was her only sister. Despite our complicated dynamic, Sophie and I had shared every major milestone of our lives. Her graduation, my promotions, family holidays, birthday celebrations. Plus, I was curious to see how my money would be transformed into her perfect day. I bookmarked a few hotel options near the chateau and started planning my time off work. A week in Paris, celebrating my sister's marriage, seeing my investment come to life in real time. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd just paid for a wedding I couldn't actually afford to attend without careful financial planning. But that was the story of our relationship. Sophie dreamed big, I made it possible, and somehow we both pretended that was a balanced dynamic. 3 weeks later, Sophie posted engagement photos on Instagram. Gorgeous shots of her and Marcus in a field of sunflowers, her ring catching the golden hour light perfectly. The caption read, "Planning our intimate dream wedding with the most important people in our lives." I liked the post immediately and commented with heart emojis. But as I scrolled through the comments from friends and family expressing excitement about the upcoming celebration, a small voice in the back of my head started asking an uncomfortable question. If this was such an intimate gathering of the most important people in her life, why hadn't she actually invited me yet? The engagement party was held at our cousin Rebecca's house on a crisp Saturday afternoon in March. Sophie had insisted it be casual and fun, which in Sophie speak meant I should bring expensive wine and pretend not to notice that everyone else seemed to know wedding details I hadn't heard. I arrived with a bottle of champagne that cost more than most people's grocery budget, because that's what you do when your sister is glowing with happiness, and you want to be part of that joy, even if you're starting to feel like an outsider looking in. The party was lovely. Sophie radiated bride-to-be bliss. Marcus told charming stories about the proposal, and everyone oohed and awed over her ring and the wedding plans. Everyone except me seemed remarkably well-informed about those plans. "I can't believe you're having the ceremony at sunset," our Aunt Linda gushed. "That'll be so romantic. The photos from the chateau grounds are going to be incredible," added Rebecca, "especially with that vintage car you're using for transportation." Vintage car? This was the first I'd heard of transportation arrangements. "Sophie, you didn't mention the car," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Oh," she looked momentarily flustered. "It's just this beautiful 1950s Rolls-Royce the chateau provides. Marcus found it in their wedding package options." "That sounds amazing. I can't wait to see it." An odd silence fell over the group. The kind of silence that happens when everyone knows something you don't, and they're all trying not to look at each other. "Actually," Sophie said, her voice taking on a careful tone, "we're still finalizing some details about the guest list and logistics." More silent. I felt my stomach start to twist. "Well, whenever you need help with planning, just let me know. I offered. I'm great with spreadsheets and coordination. That's so sweet, Sophie said. But her smile looked forced. Everything's pretty much handled, though. After the party, I lingered to help Rebecca clean up, hoping to get some insight into whatever undercurrent I'd been sensing. Rebecca, I said as we loaded glasses into the dishwasher, has Sophie mentioned anything to you about the wedding timeline? When invitations are going out? Rebecca's hand stilled on the champagne flutes. Clara, honey, she hasn't talked to you about the specifics yet? What specifics? Rebecca looked deeply uncomfortable. Maybe you should ask Sophie directly. But I didn't need to ask. Her expression told me everything I needed to know. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and did something I'd never done before. I opened my laptop and started researching my sister. Her social media posts, her tagged photos, her friend group activities over the past few months. What I found was a series of wedding planning sessions, venue visits, and dress shopping trips, all documented in cheerful Instagram stories and Facebook posts, all featuring the same group of friends and family members, all missing me entirely. 6 months of wedding planning, 6 months of excitement and preparation and shared memories, and I'd been invisible for all of it, despite funding a quarter of the celebration. The realization hit me like cold water. I wasn't being included in the wedding planning because I wasn't being included in the wedding. I was the family bank, not the family. I waited 3 days before sending the email. 3 days of analyzing every interaction Sophie and I had shared over the past months, looking for signs I'd missed. 3 days of wondering if I was paranoid or if I was finally seeing clearly. The email was simple and direct. Sophie, I wanted to check on the timeline for your wedding invitations. Should I book my travel to Paris soon, or are you still finalizing details? Let me know what works best for your planning. Love, Clara. Her response came back within 2 hours, and it was the moment everything crystallized into horrible clarity. Hey, Clara! So funny you ask. We're actually keeping the wedding super intimate. Just immediate family and closest friends. But if you want to be part of it, you can watch through Google Earth, LOL. Thanks again for all your help with costs. You're the best. XOXO, Sophie. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. Google Earth. She suggested I watch her wedding through Google Earth. The wedding I'd paid for. The wedding I'd sacrificed 2 years of savings for. The wedding where my $25,000 would transform into flowers and champagne and music and memories for 40 people who weren't me. I sat in my office chair, staring at the screen, and felt something inside me shift permanently. Not anger exactly. Not hurt, though that was there too. Something colder and more final. Clarity. For 32 years, I'd been operating under the belief that family meant mutual support. That being the reliable sister, the generous sister, the always available sister would earn me a place at the table when it mattered. I'd been wrong. I wasn't family. I was a resource. My fingers moved across the keyboard without conscious thought. I understand. Enjoy your grand day. Short. Simple. No emotion, no accusation, no plea for reconsideration. Just acknowledgement of a reality I'd been too naive to see earlier. I hit send, then closed my laptop and walked to my living room window. Outside, the city buzzed with normal life. People rushing to lunch meetings, couples walking dogs, teenagers laughing too loudly at something on their phones. None of them knew that my relationship with my sister had just ended with a suggestion that I watch her wedding via satellite imagery. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. Almost. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. You're not mad, are you? It's just so complicated with travel and everything. I looked at the message for a long moment, then put my phone face down on the coffee table. For the first time in our relationship, Sophie would have to wonder what I was thinking. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to rush to reassure her that everything was fine when it absolutely wasn't. I had 7 vacation days already approved for her wedding week. 7 days that were supposed to be spent celebrating family and love and new beginnings. Instead, I was going to use them to celebrate something else entirely. My liberation from being the family bank. But Sophie didn't know that yet. She'd find out soon enough, though. Right around the time her carefully planned wedding started falling apart without me there to fix it. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I prioritized myself. I poured a glass of the expensive wine I usually saved for special occasions, apparently funding your own exclusion from a wedding qualified as special, and opened my laptop to explore possibilities. 7 days of approved vacation time. 7 days that had been earmarked for watching my sister marry a man in a chateau I'd helped pay for, surrounded by people who deemed me unworthy of invitation. What does a woman do with unexpected freedom and a sudden clarity about her family dynamic? She books a first-class ticket to Maui. The irony was delicious. While Sophie was worried about keeping her wedding intimate, I was planning the most luxurious solo vacation of my life. The kind of trip I'd never taken because I was always saving money for family emergencies, family celebrations, family needs that somehow never included my own happiness. I found a 5-star oceanfront resort that offered exactly what I wanted: privacy, pampering, and a complete disconnection from people who took my generosity for granted. The suite overlooked the Pacific, featured a private lanai, and cost more per night than Sophie probably realized. But here's the thing about finally seeing clearly. Once you stop funding other people's dreams, you have a lot more resources for your own. I booked 7 nights, scheduled spa treatments, and made dinner reservations at the kind of restaurants that require advanced planning. The kind of places Sophie would Instagram obsessively if she could afford them, which she couldn't, without family bank funding. The booking confirmation felt like a declaration of independence. While I was planning my own celebration of freedom, my phone buzzed with messages from Sophie. Photos of dress fittings, venue decorations, cake tastings. All the intimate moments of wedding planning that I apparently wasn't intimate enough to share in person. Each message was accompanied by casual comments. "Wish you were here," and "You'd love this," and "Can't wait to tell you all about it." The cognitive dissonance was staggering. I wasn't important enough to invite to the wedding, but I was important enough to receive real-time updates about everything I was missing. I responded to none of them. Instead, I forwarded my Maui itinerary to Sarah, who immediately called me shrieking with excitement. "Finally!" She practically yelled into the phone. "Clara, I am so proud of you right now. This is exactly what you needed to do." "It feels weird," I admitted. "Like I'm being petty." "No, honey. Petty would be showing up to her wedding anyway and making a scene. This is called having boundaries and self-respect. There's a difference." Sarah was right. For the first time in my relationship with Sophie, I was making a choice based on what I needed rather than what she wanted. The freedom was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. 2 days later, Sophie called me directly. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message while researching snorkeling excursions. "Clara, hey, it's me. I feel like we should talk about the wedding stuff. I know the guest list thing is complicated, but you understand, right? It's not personal. Call me back when you get this." Not personal. The phrase that families use when they're being completely personal in the most hurtful way possible. I deleted the voicemail without responding. Because here's what I'd learned in 32 years of being the reliable sister. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Sophie had shown me exactly where I ranked in her priorities. Right below 40 other people, but well above the level of random stranger, because random strangers don't typically contribute $25,000 to your life events. My phone calendar now showed 1 week of paradise instead of 1 week of watching my sister's dreams come true with my money. It felt like the first honest decision I'd made in years. But Sophie was about to discover that the family bank had just permanently closed its doors. And unlike me, she wouldn't have 7 days of luxury to cushion the blow. The morning of Sophie's wedding, I woke up in paradise. Literally. My suite at the Grand Wiley faced the Pacific Ocean, and I'd fallen asleep to the sound of waves lapping against the shore. No alarm clock, no stress. No frantic last-minute wedding preparations that somehow always became my responsibility. Just sunshine streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. My phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m. with notifications I'd been steadily ignoring. Messages, missed calls, voicemails piling up like digital debris from a life I was no longer interested in managing. I poured myself coffee from the in-room service. The good stuff, not the budget brand I usually bought to save money for family emergencies. And finally glanced at my phone. 17 missed calls from Sophie. 23 text messages. Each one more frantic than the last. "Clara, emergency, call me immediately. Clara, please, I'm freaking out. Where are you? This is urgent. Clara, I need you to call me right now." The progression from demanding to desperate was almost fascinating to watch. Like a real-time study in what happens when the person who always fixes everything suddenly isn't available to fix anything. I sipped my coffee and watched a sea turtle surface near the shore. The final message, sent just 20 minutes ago, was a voice note. I almost didn't listen to it, but curiosity got the better of me. Sophie's voice came through tear-choked and panicked. "Clara, I know you're mad about the wedding thing, but I really need your help. The airline canceled our honeymoon flights to Italy, and they're saying it's weather-related, so no compensation, and Marcus is freaking out, and I don't know what to do, and you're the only person who can figure this stuff out. Please just call me back, please." I set the phone down and laughed. Actually laughed out loud. The airline had canceled their flights. The honeymoon flights that I'd purchased for them as an additional wedding gift, back when I still believed that being generous would somehow earn me basic human decency. What do you think will happen next? Drop your predictions in the comments below, because this story is about to take a turn that even I didn't see coming. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on me. Sophie was having a crisis on her wedding day, desperately needed my help, and I was sitting in a luxury resort sipping artisanal coffee while watching sea turtles. For once, her emergency wasn't my emergency, and it felt absolutely incredible. The honeymoon flights were booked through my credit card, in my name, with my rewards points. I'd arranged them months ago, when I still believed I'd be celebrating with the family in Paris, sharing stories and champagne and the warm glow of Sophie's happiness. Instead, I was sharing a poolside cabana with a Mai Tai and the growing realization that I had complete control over whether Sophie's post-wedding plans survived. My phone continued its frantic buzzing. Now Marcus was calling too, leaving voicemails that I could tell were forced to sound calm and reasonable, while Sophie probably hyperventilated in the background. "Clara, hey, it's Marcus. Sophie mentioned you might be able to help us figure out this airline situation. We're kind of stuck here, and you know how these things work better than we do. Could you give us a call when you get this? Thanks." How diplomatic. How careful not to acknowledge that they'd excluded me from their special day while simultaneously expecting me to solve their problems. I opened my laptop and logged into my airline account. Sure enough, there was the cancellation notice. Weather delays in Rome had created a cascade of problems, and their connecting flight had been automatically canceled. The airline was offering rebooking options for later in the week, or a full refund to the original purchaser. The original purchaser being me. I stared at the screen for a long moment, considering my options. I could call the airline, spend an hour navigating customer service, potentially pay rebooking fees, and save Sophie's honeymoon. Or I could click Request Refund and let them figure it out themselves. My finger hovered over the refund button. In the old dynamic, I wouldn't have hesitated. Sophie needed help, so I'd help. Sophie was stressed, so I'd fix it. Sophie's happiness was my responsibility, and I'd move mountains to protect it. But that version of Clara was sitting in a church in Paris right now, watching her sister get married in a ceremony she'd helped fund, but wasn't invited to attend. This version of Clara was sipping a Mai Tai in paradise. I clicked Request Refund. The confirmation appeared instantly. Refund of $3,247 will be processed within 3 to 5 business days. $3,000 that would go back into my account instead of funding a romantic Italian honeymoon for two people who deemed me unworthy of witnessing their wedding vows. I closed the laptop and ordered another Mai Tai. My phone rang again. Sophie, of course. This time I actually answered. "Clara! Oh, thank God, I've been trying to reach you all morning." "I've been busy," I said, not bothering to elaborate. "Clara, I need your help. The flights to Italy got canceled and the airline is being totally unhelpful, and Marcus is having a panic attack and I don't know what to do." "That sounds stressful," I agreed, taking a sip of my drink. "Can you call them? You're so good at handling these things, and the reservation is in your name anyway." Such casual entitlement. Of course the reservation was in my name. I'd paid for it. Just like I'd paid for a quarter of her wedding that I was currently not attending. "Actually, Sophie, I already handled it." "You did? Oh my God, you're amazing. What did they say? When can we fly out?" "I requested a full refund. It should be in my account by Friday." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. "You..." "What?" "I canceled the flights and took the refund. I figured since you didn't need me at your wedding, you probably didn't need my help with your honeymoon either." "Clara, you can't be serious. It's my wedding day." "Exactly. It's your wedding day. Your responsibility. Your problem to solve." And for the first time in our entire relationship, I hung up on my sister. It felt better than I'd expected. The phone calls continued for hours. Sophie, Marcus, even my mother got involved, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails about family loyalty and wedding day stress and how disappointed they all were in my behavior. I listened to exactly none of them. Instead, I spent the day at the spa, getting a hot stone massage that cost more than most people's car payments. The massage therapist's hands worked out knots I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. Tension from years of being the family problem solver, the reliable sister, the one who always said yes. Halfway through the treatment, my phone buzzed with a notification that made me smile into the massage table's headrest. Bank alert. Deposit of $3,247 pending. The honeymoon refund had already been processed. That night, I treated myself to dinner at the resort's most expensive restaurant. The kind of place Sophie would post Instagram stories about for weeks if she could afford it, which she couldn't. Especially not now that she was dealing with last-minute travel rebooking on her own dime. I ordered the tasting menu with wine pairings and ate slowly, savoring each course while my phone continued its futile attempts to guilt me back into my old role. The sommelier recommended a champagne that cost more per glass than Sophie probably spent on her entire rehearsal dinner. I ordered 2 glasses, just because I could. Between courses, I checked my bank balance. The refund had boosted my vacation fund significantly, and I found myself browsing excursions I'd originally deemed too expensive. A helicopter tour of the island, a private sunset sailing trip, a day at an exclusive beach club that required advance reservations and a dress code Sophie could never afford. I booked all three. My phone rang again. My mother this time. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Clara, what is wrong with you?" Her voice was sharp with disapproval. "Sophie is in tears on her wedding day because of your selfishness." "Hi, Mom. I'm having a wonderful vacation. Thanks for asking." "This isn't a joke, Clara. Family comes first. Always." Funny how that only seems to apply to me. Sophie made a mistake with the guest list, but that's no reason to ruin her honeymoon. I didn't ruin anything. I simply stopped paying for it. You're being vindictive. I looked out at the ocean, where the sunset was painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that no Instagram filter could capture. "No, Mom. I'm being free." I hung up and turned off my phone completely. For the first time in 32 years, my family's crisis was not my emergency. Their panic was not my responsibility. Their expectations were not my commands. The silence was beautiful. Tomorrow, I'd wake up in paradise again. Sophie would wake up in Paris, dealing with the consequences of treating her family bank account like it came without a human attached. And maybe, just maybe, she'd finally understand that actions have consequences. Even on your wedding day, especially on your wedding day. Day 3 of my Hawaiian liberation was when the real begging started. I'd spent the morning on a private catamaran, snorkeling in crystal clear waters while my phone, still turned off, collected what I assumed were increasingly desperate messages from my family. When I finally powered it back on that evening, the backlog was impressive. 47 missed calls, 62 text messages, voicemails that started angry and evolved into pleading. Sophie had apparently spent her wedding night trying to book last-minute flights to anywhere romantic. Rome was completely sold out due to the earlier weather delays. The few available tickets to other destinations were thousands of dollars they couldn't afford. According to her increasingly frantic messages, they were currently stuck in Paris with no honeymoon destination and no budget to fix the situation. "Clara, please just call me back. I'm sorry about the wedding invite, okay? I was wrong. But I can't fix that now, and we really need help with this travel thing." Too little, too late, and still completely focused on what I could do for her rather than what she'd done to me. The turning point came in a voicemail from Marcus, who'd clearly been designated as the voice of reason. "Clara, look, I get that you're mad. Sophie should have invited you, but she's crying in our hotel room on what's supposed to be our honeymoon, and she keeps saying she just wants her sister back. Can we please figure this out?" The manipulation was smoother, more sophisticated, but it was still manipulation. Paint Sophie as the victim of her own choices. Frame me as the cruel sister who'd rather be right than help family. Make it seem like I could fix everything by just being the bigger person. But here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't being the smaller person. I was being the right-sized person. The person who reciprocated the energy she received. The person who saved her generosity for people who valued it. I deleted all the messages without responding. Instead, I used my unexpected refund money to upgrade Toei helicopter tour that ended with champagne on a private beach. As the helicopter lifted off, I looked down at the resort where I'd been staying and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. No guilt, no obligation. No voice in the back of my head asking what Sophie needed or how I could help, or whether I was being selfish for prioritizing my own joy. Just the wind from the helicopter blades and the Pacific Ocean spreading endlessly below me, and the knowledge that for the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I wanted to be. That night at dinner, another ridiculously expensive restaurant that I could now afford thanks to not funding other people's romantic adventures, I met another solo traveler named David. He was a doctor from Seattle, recently divorced, learning how to enjoy his own company after 20 years of marriage. "What brings you to paradise?" he asked over our shared appetizer. "Liberation," I said without hesitation. He laughed. "That's the most honest answer I've heard to that question." We talked for hours about the freedom that comes from disappointing people who never appreciated you anyway. About the relief of finally setting boundaries. About how sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is stop enabling their worst behavior. "My ex-wife used to say I was too generous," David told me. Turned out she meant too generous with everyone except her. "My sister used to say I was the best sister ever," I replied. Turned out she meant I was the most useful sister ever. When I got back to my suite that night, my phone had 3 new messages. Sophie, Marcus, and my mother, all saying essentially the same thing. They'd found cheap tickets to Portugal instead of Italy. If I could just help with the price difference. I screenshotted their requests and saved them in a folder titled, "Not My Problem." Then I booked myself a spa day that cost exactly what their Portugal tickets would have cost. Because the best revenge isn't cruelty. It's indifference. It's spending your money on your own happiness instead of other people's dreams. It's finally understanding that you can't buy your way into someone's love, but you can definitely buy yourself some peace. My last full day in Hawaii was when Sophie finally said the words I'd been waiting 32 years to hear. Clara, I was wrong about everything. The voicemail came through while I was getting a beachside massage, my phone face down in the sand. I didn't listen to it until hours later, after a day of complete relaxation that my family's drama couldn't touch. Her voice was different this time. Not demanding, not manipulative, not even pleading, just broken. I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I finally get it. I treated you like a bank account with legs. I took your money and your help and your love, and I gave you nothing back except expectations for more. The wedding thing wasn't about space or intimacy. It was about me being embarrassed that I needed your money to make it happen. I was embarrassed that everyone would know I couldn't afford my own dream without my sister's help. So I decided I could take your generosity but hide you from the results. She paused, and I could hear her crying. Marcus and I are stuck in Paris. We're sleeping on his cousin's couch and eating grocery store sandwiches because we can't afford hotels or restaurants. Our honeymoon is watching free movies on his laptop in someone else's living room. And you know what the worst part is? I did this to myself. I had a sister who would have helped me plan a beautiful wedding within my means. I had a sister who would have celebrated with me no matter what. And I threw that away because I was too proud to admit I needed help, and too selfish to include you in the help you were giving. Another pause. I don't expect you to forgive me or help us or even call me back. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost. It wasn't just a sister. It was the best person I knew, and I was too stupid to realize it until she was gone. The message ended, and I sat in my suite's living room, watching the sunset paint the ocean in impossible colors. For 32 years, I'd wanted Sophie to see me clearly, to value me, to treat me like family instead of like a resource. And now that she finally did, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even sadness. Just a calm, settled certainty that this version of Sophie, the one who finally understood what she'd lost, was arriving too late. I'd already grieved the sister I thought I had. I'd already accepted that family doesn't automatically mean love. I'd already learned to choose myself when no one else would. Sophie's epiphany was powerful and genuine and completely irrelevant to my life. I deleted the voicemail and ordered room service champagne to celebrate my last night in paradise. Tomorrow, I'd fly home to a life I was finally excited to live. A life where my generosity was reserved for people who valued it. Where my money funded my dreams instead of other people's fantasies. Where my vacation days were spent on my own happiness instead of watching other people celebrate milestones I'd financed but wasn't invited to share. Sophie would figure out her life eventually, or she wouldn't. Either way, it was no longer my problem to solve, and that realization felt like the most valuable souvenir I could bring home from Hawaii. The sister who would have dropped everything to help Sophie was gone. In her place was a woman who'd finally learned the difference between being loving and being used. And that woman was never going back. 6 months later, I still don't know how Sophie handled her life after Paris. I changed my phone number when I got back from Hawaii, blocked all family members on social media, moved to a new apartment across town where no one could show up uninvited with emergencies that somehow always required my immediate financial intervention. The silence was everything I'd never known I wanted. My new life was smaller, but infinitely more authentic. The friends who remained were people who celebrated my successes without asking what I could do for them. The social events I attended were ones I chose, not family obligations disguised as celebrations. My bank account grew steadily for the first time in years, free from the constant drain of other people's poor planning. I bought myself things I'd always wanted but never prioritized. A good mattress, art for my walls, a vacation fund that belonged only to me. 3 months after Hawaii, Sarah forwarded me a social media post from a mutual friend. Sophie had apparently started a blog about financial independence and learning to live within your means. The irony was so thick I almost choked on my morning coffee. Looks like she figured out how to manage without the family bank, Sarah texted. Good for her, I replied, and I meant it. Not because I cared about Sophie's success, but because her independence meant I'd never have to worry about her showing up in my life again with her hand extended. The real test came when my mother tracked down my work email address 6 months later. The subject line read, Sophie's wedding anniversary. Can we please talk? I deleted it without opening it. Whatever anniversary crisis they were manufacturing wasn't my emergency. Whatever guilt trip they'd crafted wasn't my burden to carry. Whatever reconciliation they envisioned wasn't my responsibility to facilitate. That evening, I had dinner with David, the doctor I'd met in Hawaii. We'd kept in touch, bonding over our shared journey of learning to prioritize ourselves after years of being everyone else's solution. Do you ever miss the drama? He asked over dessert. I considered the question seriously. Did I miss the frantic phone calls, the last-minute emergencies, the constant feeling that other people's happiness depended on my willingness to sacrifice my own? I miss feeling needed, I admitted, but I don't miss being used. That's the difference between healthy relationships and toxic ones, he said. Being needed feels good when it's reciprocal. He was right. My new life had plenty of people who needed me, and who I needed back. Colleagues who valued my expertise and offered their own in return. Friends who celebrated my victories and comforted me through challenges. A romantic relationship built on mutual support rather than one-sided rescue missions. None of them were family, in the traditional sense. All of them were family, in the ways that actually mattered. As I walked home that night through my new neighborhood, past shops and restaurants I'd chosen, toward an apartment I'd decorated with my own preferences, I realized something profound. I'd spent 32 years trying to earn love by being useful. Now I was 33, finally understanding that real love doesn't require earning. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about choosing yourself when no one else will. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is stop setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. And sometimes the sister who learns to love herself becomes the woman who never needs saving again. My vacation days are mine now. My money funds my dreams. My emergencies are the only ones that get my immediate attention. Sophie learned to live without me, and I learned to live for myself. Both lessons were exactly what we needed, even if only one of us is happy about it.